Welcome back, everyone. This is the E2KG Network. This is the Enough to Keep Going podcast for the week of August 13th. I can't believe we're halfway through August already. So we are coming a week off of a little hiatus here, a little summer vacation for all of us here on the E2KG Network as we transition a few things. It was also the week of... the transition was maybe a little planned, but also not so planned with some YouTube studio creator changes that they made in the beginning of August. And so now we are coming here on Discord, which actually is great. It works out well for the E2KG network because it not only allows us to keep going with our podcasts, but also to continue to create a community and to be able to have a little bit of a centralized place here where, as we continue to play and talk about what we are playing as well. So joining me tonight on our inaugural Discord podcast is Swissguard. Swissguard, how are you?
Doing all right. I'm hoping this, works because it's kind of an experiment tonight.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement, that it's an experiment. So if anybody hears any of this at any point in time, congratulations. And we're glad that you've tuned in or you've come back to discover us. Some of our distribution channels are being a little delayed as we move to this new piece here. So we hope that you continue to engage with us. And with Discord, we've got some options here and some things that we didn't have before as well. So which is good. And actually, one of the things we'll have coming up is Discord Go Live. So some easy ways for us to be streaming off of Discord with 10 other followers. So this is the Enough to Keep Going. This is our deep dive podcast. We'll be diving into the news over the last 2 weeks or so, as we usually do on an every other week basis. So if you're joining us, well, welcome back. If you're just stumbling across us, I apologize, but hopefully you just listen for a few more minutes because I bet you're going to hear something that's going to give you a reason to stick around. But here on the deep dive shows, we spend a little bit of time through the last 2 weeks' news. We pull out some headlines that were meaningful to us or maybe meaningful to the industry, something we want to talk a little bit more about. And so, Swiss, the first set of news that we have over the last week or so has really been about some streaming changes, or at least some additional features that have been coming through not only Discord, as I just mentioned with Discord Go Live, but we've got some Twitch changes, or at least some new Twitch Studio beta going live, or at least being able to opt into it, which opens up some additional tools and makes streaming on Twitch easier. It certainly takes care of and streamlines a number of their kind of initial setup pieces. But I think the big streaming news for the last 2 weeks has been related to Twitch, but more so about Mixer, right? With Ninja leaving Twitch and heading over to Mixer. So Microsoft has put up a significant exclusivity contract and some good money behind it, moving Ninja over to Mixer. I think some of the aspects of the hype around it there, that Ninja can talk about coming back to his roots, as he says, right? That he was originally a Halo player and started that way. The fact that Mixer can do a lot of promotion and bring over a big name and tout things like he's picking up hundreds of subscribers and he's up, what was he up over? He's up over millions here within the first couple of days or so. And so some of that is related to the fact that Mixer is giving away some subscriptions in terms of allowing people to opt in, but it also is a way for them to tout some big numbers all within a very short period of time as Ninja heads over to Mixer. So Ninja, and the most recent story here, right, is that Microsoft doubles up his users in terms of at least subscribed people as well. So that's the first piece here. I think one of the interesting things I found about this Swiss is kind of the battle of the stars aspect of this, right? That we're bringing over big names to different platforms, and how streaming and similar to esports has continues to try to make a name for itself and to generate revenue or at least views and what that means. We talked a little bit about this as we've been off for the last week when this happened. We talked a little bit of this online, but uh, what are your thoughts on this? Prime's not here. Gasicles is not here. Both of them have done a lot more streaming than either of you or I. So we're kind of the odd ones out here to talk about the significance and the importance of this. But I think one of the things that I would say that to me showed up as a significance is it made news on USA Today. It came across my Washington Post feed in terms of news stories, right? I think there is some of this because of the prevalence and dominance of Fortnite and Ninja's role within that this has become a bigger news than it may normally have been. What are your thoughts?
Um, Mostly that I don't understand it. Just as you said, like I'm not into the streaming culture. Um, I believe the first time I saw Ninja was when my son was watching Dude Perfect, and they did some like cross promotion on YouTube where they played Fortnite, and that's the other reason why it's not been a he's not really been on my radar. I don't follow the streaming scene, and I'm kind of left. I'm not really into Fortnite at all. But from like just a purely business perspective, I mean, it makes total sense. It's not like game streaming is the only place where we're seeing. I guess they call them influencers now, like on YouTube or like on Twitch and Instagram and Mixer.
Wow, we sound like an old bunch of old white men.
I
I
know
think
it's
they
really
call
bad.
them
I'm telling you,
influencers.
they call them
Influencers. Yeah.
influencers,
Okay.
whatever.
So
I mean, just like they're people, and they just show up and they tweet about themselves, and companies throw money at them to do it. It doesn't. It's weird to me that they had to come up with a new term like influencer. It's like, well, you're not really like, are you doing a show? Are you like a host? Are you what are you? And it's like, well, I'm just an influencer, and it always struck me as odd that term, but um, I understand it. It's like they get eyeballs, they pull people in, the big um, the article. I mean, you see like um, on GameSpot. You have Ninja, and he's got his Maxnomic, chair behind him, and of course we see a lot of gaming peripherals that are sponsored by different players. So, you know, I think something like this was inevitable. We see it, my first real reaction when I saw it was how much it struck me like like we see like in the NFL or baseball or something. Bryce Harper makes a big deal about leaving the Nationals, and he ends up with the Phillies, or what have you. It's like, that makes headlines in the sports media world. I think it made headlines in the USA Today. You're calling us fuddy-duddies. I mean, at least we know what Fortnite is and what a video game is and Battle Royale. Like, I'm sure the folks at like Good Morning America and USA Today, that's really not in their wheelhouse. But the fact that he moves so many numbers makes it relevant. So, I don't fault Microsoft in the slightest for trying to pull somebody that can pull the followers that he has. I mean, I imagine that this is going to burn out someday. I just don't see the sustainability. Like, what's your return on investment for watching Ninja play Fortnite for years on end? That's my big thing. Like, how long will this go? Is this going to be something where are they going to be paying him to play Halo Master Chief Collection or something like that? I mean, like, how does this move forward?
Well, I think that's some of the news that I heard around it. After the dust kind of settled, is that it's not so much about trying to bring Fortnite streams over, setting things up for whatever, for Halo Infinite, for whatever the next console is, Microsoft as well, where not only does it allow them to bring a lot more eyes over to Halo Infinite potentially, but also we don't know how Mixer is going to be integrated into Xbox. Potentially there's lots of ways that it becomes a much more push button turnkey type of streaming piece as well, which only brings more people into Mixer. Again, the monetization of this, I still wonder about in terms of where the term profit is to that, or right, what is that, where's the revenue in bringing somebody into that. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, and
But
and if this is kind of just like Microsoft picking up a number of game studios over the last 2 years at E3, if this is just one more kind of setting the stage, getting the table ready for the announcements for their next console, which surprise includes some heavy streaming capacities as well.
yeah, I think that's the interesting thing is like, I mean, growing up, what did we care about with regards to games or when the new console was going to come out? Like, oh, now, the Super Nintendo is 16-bit. And it's just, there's so much more. I mean, as you said, Microsoft pulled in all these other studios, but it's like there's so much more grafted on to gaming as a revenue stream for these companies now. Um, and, I'm too old and out of touch to wrap my head around it.
Well, in that case, let's go ahead and move on to another story here. Again, because this is the E2KG network, we obviously have to talk about some financial reports, right? Like this is the nature of our business. As we talk about some things here, we had both some earnings calls, some quarterly earnings calls from 2K, where they announced that their recurrent spending, their in-game transactions are up to 58% of all of their revenue. And we also have Activision Blizzard's um, uh, information in terms of their quarterly earnings as well. So again, that Activision Blizzard story is, this is where the headlines were that their revenue fall year over year, but the follow-up tagline, which most of the headlines don't cover, that they still came in over what their projections were, right? So this is where the market speculation of projections versus uh, stockholder requirements for year-over-year increases starts to not mesh up. So they came in at 1.396 billion, which was above 1.31 billion of what they had predicted, but still below uh, zero point 0.3 billion below last year. Big numbers, but I think some of the other big numbers that are interesting in this are things like they had uh, 327 million monthly active users in this financial quarter, but of those 327, 258 were connected to King and Candy Crush, right? So over 2/3 of them are connected to the mobile game. And again, Activision Blizzard is the three tiers of Activision, Blizzard, and King, and with King's making up a big piece of their monthly active users as well. One of the other pieces out of here, and this was picked up from Forbes, was as Activision Blizzard's earnings call talked about a number of where their franchises and their IPs in development. They listed off, new games coming from the Call of Duty franchise, and they've had a lot of success with their remasters for Spyro and Crash Bandicoot, and their strong properties in Activision Blizzard with World of Warcraft and Watch and Diablo, and then they moved on. But there was no mention there of StarCraft. Recently, we also had the news about a scrapped StarCraft first-person shooter. Not all that different than every time I hear this, I always think Ghost for the GameCube, right? But again, that idea of StarCraft not being in the conversation for Activision Blizzard's plans within kind of their next cycle of games. So I know that here, both you and Agasicles are some school RTS fans. How does this news strike you in terms of kind of StarCraft laying dormant now?
As much as I've been like a StarCraft guy, I mean not a StarCraft guy, an RTS guy, I never was a StarCraft guy. It was like I played other franchises and never really got into StarCraft. I played it a few times. But it kind of it surprises me because I feel like and this goes back to like the expectations, setting expectations, and Activision Blizzard said, this is what we expect, and people were more hopeful. And it was, it's kind of surprising because it just feels like everything Activision Blizzard is doing is, I don't want to say withering on the vine. It just seems like we're kind of entering this like atrophy phase or calcification phase. It's like
atrophy. I think that's a good way to talk about it, right? It does feel like they are just churning around. They haven't done a whole. I mean, we've talked about this for a number of years. That in their portfolio, the games become fewer and fewer, and they're leaning more and more on a small published titles.
Yeah, it's like it's surprising because World of Warcraft, when did that come out? Like 2004, I almost want to say.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean that game's
coming out in the 15th year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's incredible for the length of time that it's been going down, but I don't really understand what they have coming. Now we're getting like a reboot, remade Call of Duty Modern Warfare now, right? And as you said, like most of their players aren't even playing like hardcore, what you would call hardcore games. Bungie split off of them, and that was a new and a different IP. Overwatch, I guess you could say, they've been really trying to pull into esports with that. But me I've never really been into Overwatch. I played it a little bit, but as far as the hype train,
trying, right? Yeah, they're trying to create a culture and an interest around Watch, certainly.
but it's not. I don't know how much it's really taken off, because like if you go to like your generic gaming sites, anytime there's Fortnite news or something like that, they'll headline with it. I'm just not seeing the same level of, I don't know, piercing the broad range of gamer culture, I guess you could say. I mean, I felt like Overwatch was a big deal when it first came out, and then they started doing their seasons and everything. But and they have strong fans. I don't know if that's like something that Activision can hang their hat on and be like, wow, this is an IP that can lead us into the future and like a glorious future. It's like, why is Candy Crush still doing it? And maybe they're cool with that. Like, I mean, Candy Crush, I'm sure takes a lot less time and effort to develop and maintain than Call of Duty Modern Warfare or something like that. So if they're satisfied with that, great. But eventually you're going to start uh, bleeding users into the new hotness, so to speak. And I mean, I don't think it's for. I mean, right now it's Fortnite. I don't think it won't be forever, but uh, I don't know. It's like when you look at like StarCraft, it's a beloved franchise. People look back on it with a lot of nostalgia. Uh, from everything I heard, Wings of Liberty and um, I don't even remember what the Zerg and the Protoss campaigns
Yeah,
were.
right. There are two other expansions
Yeah,
over there. Yep.
but I thought they did well from what I understood. I just never picked them up, and I think they went free to play or something too.
Wings of Liberty, I think, did. I mean, I think you can get the original.
But that's like a franchise with a ton of lore, and like you said, like it's you can tap into that. They did that with Warcraft. I mean, they took an RTS franchise and turned it into a behemoth MMORPG. And then as soon as you said like, oh, they had some shooters, and that's that's the first thing I thought of was like StarCraft Ghost and all like the promises. But it's like, man, just look at find a company that you've seen could do some good FPS games and just let them roll with it. And I don't understand why they weren't ever able to capitalize on that. And I
See, I'm
understand.
laughing at that, right? Because think about who Activision Blizzard has in their range of studios, right?
Yeah,
You've got Vicarious Visions, who's worked on content in Destiny 2. You've got Raven Studios, who did content for Call of Duty, right? I mean, you've got, well, you can't really count the multiple Call of Duty studios at this point because they're still, even Sledgehammer has had to bring in Treyarch, those stories. But they've got people here that have those chops. But again, it's I don't. Yeah, it's surprising that they haven't tried something like
and the other thing, uh, oh man, I lost my train of thought. Oh, um, it just the fact that it doesn't surprise me though that it's not on the roadmap. If they haven't pivoted yet to like some new genre, like me going back, I think a few pick plays ago, we did play like a different genre, a dying genre, or an old genre or something, and I ended up playing Age of Empires 2, which growing up, like I don't know how many hours I suck into that game, an unhealthy amount. So, um, I was excited about playing it, and then playing it now, I'm like, oh man, this feels old, and I can understand why real-time strategy games have kind of faded. Um, it may just be, you know, my tastes as a gamer have evolved, um, but it's just, you can go back and play an old game, and you're like, wow, things have changed over the years, and perhaps just an RTS is just not, you know, not in the it's not everybody's cup of tea anymore. It's just not doesn't feel fresh anymore. So like I can understand why StarCraft the RTS can fade away, but you're sitting on a very well recognizable IP, and it's kind of baffling why you haven't capitalized on it. So
well, it's interesting too. So Dark Horse, the comic book publisher, over the last couple of months here, they've started a StarCraft comic series. They had one run of a limited series, and now they're in their second one. So they are trying to do, at least somebody's trying to do something there, as you said, but they really haven't found another way to convey that outside of some print media. I guess they haven't found another video game aspect for that, but it does seem like there should be some ways to
I
do that. I want to go back.
we,
Go ahead.
we should make one correction. There was Heroes of the Storm. Was that the
Yes.
card game or
No,
something?
Heroes of the Storm was the most, and it's still going.
Okay.
Heroes of the Storm, I have it installed. It is still an active, well, but last year Heroes of the Storm, or actually maybe this winter,
They did
they
something.
announced that they were shifting development priorities, that they were pulling people off of making new content, They had canceled Heroes of the Dorm, the esports tournament, and the esports scene around Heroes of the Storm, and really just kind of moving it onto kind of life support, where that they're not adding any new content to it anymore. So that was their Heroes of the Storm piece. Yes, that's still out there. I want to go back to the article here. They do say, thinking of what you said about World of Warcraft, that they say that their monthly active users, quote, relatively stable, unquote, right? So that says that they're not necessarily growing, but they haven't dropped off at a rate that's alarming that we want to report. They did talk about how their subscribers to WoW have increased since May, and that their Hearthstone transactions are up quarter, which is Hearthstone has been pumping out a lot of new expansions and have gotten some good praise for their content with those expansions. So they've got some revenue areas, but again, and a lot of it is on backs of a small number of IPs.
When you're a tech company, I don't think investors want to hear we have stable users. They want to hear growth. So
yes, right. That's it's a challenging piece there. All right. So one of the places where the stable or growth area with Activision is not happening is with their Bungie and Destiny 2 game, now that they have separated from each other. And part of that has also meant, as the news about Shadowkeep coming out, Shadowkeep delayed until October, is also that cross save is coming earlier than expected. So cross save, again, is the idea of accounts and having a kind of defined character that can be on any platform. And that cross save is coming next week, actually. The 21st is the anticipated date. Again, this isn't over to Steam yet. This is just the cross save piece. And so I think part of this here is a chance to, website is up, it walks you through a few things. But I think part of that is the idea that they're trying to get some kinks out, because I'll defer to you on this one, but I would guess that not only is the network aspect of the cross save a little tricky, then moving everybody's content over to Steam also is going to be a little tricky, let alone getting a stable new game for users as well. Seems like there was a lot that Bungie was trying to put on their plate, being an independent studio, and so now they are spacing that out a little bit with cross save coming first. So the idea here in cross save, just from the website, again, you're linking together your accounts on Bungie.net if you have not already. You're choosing which character or characters, which account, and up to 3 characters on that account is going to be your dominant account. And then that character set would be able to be used across all of your platforms. Again, I think the key here, and we've talked about this on E2KG, is that you're going to have to link your accounts together. So I know that Gaskins was not sure if he was going to link his account or if he was going to keep some of them separate, maybe link the Xbox and the PC, but keep his PlayStation 4 with his original character separate. So if you're, at least the way that I'm looking at this, is that if you don't link your account, you don't, you still maintain the individual characters and all the gear you had and any legacy that you had with them. But once you link the accounts, whatever character is linked in there and is not the dominant account, you lose those characters forever. And maybe that's not a big deal. I've got characters on all 3 different platforms, but none of them are as far along, and so I don't feel too attached to that. But I know some people, maybe there are certain memories, or maybe it's a certain, you earned a certain weapon or armor set with one character, and so this may be a more challenging decision for some. Swiss, I know that you and Bella have been playing Destiny 2 again here for the last couple of weeks. are you getting your characters in line, trying to figure out, get them up to speed, or are you guys predominantly on PC, and so this is not necessarily much of a challenge for you?
This won't, for us, it won't be a problem because we've only been playing on the Blizzard app anyway on PC. Um, and it's really not a problem because we only have time to play with one character. So I've only got the one warlock that I use. So I don't really have a decision to make. Um, I I wonder how many people are going to be like with you to a lesser extent, but really like Ascles, I know he's torn about it. Um, with significant play time on multiple platforms. Um, I think this is just kind of, it feels like a one, like more like you said, like, hey, I played with it a little bit on these other ones. Um, I can port my good character and be able to play it elsewhere, and I think that's the positive spin. Um, and it's not about, like you said, you're not going to care if you lose them. Uh, my thing is, yeah, the one shot nature of this, I think, is the thing that is the most surprising. Like, why can't I? I don't know. I guess it makes sense. You know, ultimately, what's the goal, right? To have one character, and I can get onto it from Xbox or PC or PlayStation 4, right? No matter what, and I'm playing that same character and leveling that same character up. Is that that's the ultimate goal, right? Um,
Yes, I'm nodding my head for the audio listeners.
yeah.
Yes, that is the ultimate goal of being able to, or take a character that you've leveled up, join your friends on different platforms in order to continue.
So I don't understand. I guess there's really not a good way for them to get around the fact that, like, you know, you want to do this, you can, but if you do this, there's going to be collateral damage. I'm not sure how they can you can have your cake and eat it too. You know what I mean? Other than having multiple accounts, which you already have that now. So um, if they had the option to select a character from one account and a character from another account and a character from account 3 and merge them into one, I think that'd be more palatable for people because I don't get the sense that that's how it works. It's like I'm gonna go
So,
with
so
PC as my
network
primary.
guy, is that even possible? I mean, this makes sense because you're just kind of you're distributing that information on whatever account is there. But is
Every
it even possible?
everything that they have associated, like all the metadata associated with the character, should not be tied to any particular platform. That's why you're able to like install the Destiny 2 app on your smartphone and tinker with it, and when you log in again, you have those changes are reflected. Um, Ultimately, it's just JSON file or whatever on some server. It's probably more like a database, but um, some server there that defines who your character is. So to me, I wouldn't think that there'd be a problem. Um, then again, maybe there are some tendrils for a particular account. Um, yeah, to come, especially with perhaps like some of the purchases that you've made or whatever, and perhaps that they're not as decoupled as I imagine them to be. Like my main character, my main on PC, and then like a character my kid threw together and they tinker around with from time to time. It's all under my account, but maybe there's more hooks into each other than I think on the back end. Conceptually, like I wouldn't imagine that. I could just be like, well, just copy that character from over there and paste it in here, and I should have all the attributes. So um, I would expect it to be possible, but I haven't seen the code, so
Yeah, I'd be curious to see once this goes live, uh, where those kinks are, right? Like, if this is what they've laid out, right? But they laid out that cross save is intended to be a one-time piece that in case you goof something up, there's a 90-day wait period to re-able the function. That you're going to have to the content on each different platform that you're bringing a character over. So all of these, I think they've done an effective job of getting that information out there. Like any technological launch of anything, there's going to be some kinks. There's going to be people who don't read it maybe as detailed as they should, and make some quick decisions and create some problems for themselves along the way. It'll be interesting to see what type of news stories happen on August 21st and August 22nd as people begin to try this. And again, I would guess that unless you are going back to our first story with Twitch and Mixer and Discord with their Go Live, that if unless you're trying to stream this as kind of like you've got your community and everybody wants to see how this works, or it's kind of the shock value of watching the car crash in case something bad happens to your character. I almost wonder, for the average user, this is the wait a few days to let the kinks, let people figure out where the problems are or what not to do, or if you bring it over from a PS4 to an Xbox, you seem to lose something. Who knows how long this is? So, I am eager for it because I would love to get back and play some Destiny 2 with some Destiny 1 friends on Xbox, but at the same time, I had never had time to level up multiple characters. I got 3 characters, not on 3 different platforms. So having the ability to bring these across has been something I've been looking forward to. We'll see how it works out in reality.
I'm more concerned, not the cross save, because I feel like that's the simplest piece. Like, you take the metadata from one, you do the count handshaking. Hopefully, they should have that well tested. Sucks the metadata to the other place, and you're good to go. I'm more concerned about the lift to Steam, because now you're working on an entirely new platform, and it's like, that to me is like you're taking your entire PC user base and running it somewhere else, and that strikes me as more ripe for problems. So
yeah, I think that one is the one where they really, I'm sure they've been testing it internally, and it's going to be where you throw how many hundreds of thousands of accounts at it in the first 5 minutes, and we'll see what happens. But yes, I think that that is the more technologically challenging piece, or at least in theory, it has been. So we have talked about streaming here on E2KG. We've done our obligatory earnings and financial statements, but we haven't done our obligatory sales charts here. So let's visit the UK sales charts for the last few weeks. So over the last couple of weeks here in the UK, Fire Emblem Three Houses has been up at number 1. But this week, well, I guess technically for last week, so the week of week of August 5th, that the sales charts had a new Fire Emblem Three Houses dropped all the way down after 2 weeks in the number 1 spot, dropped all the way down to number 7, and coming back up here. Well, I guess not even back up, because Crash Team Racing was tied with Fire Emblem Three Houses last week, and so it remains up top. But Mario Maker coming back to number 2, and Mario Kart 8, which was at number 7 last week, is back up to number 3. Surprisingly, FIFA 19, which is always in the top 5 here, at least traditionally is back up here. No surprise, Grand Theft Auto and F1, again, because we are talking about the UK sales charts. But I think the interesting story here from eSwiss, maybe it's different for you, but it is the quick drop of Fire Emblem Three Houses. Or not, 2 weeks at number 1 is pretty good. I guess that's a question of how long the tail is on that game. Is that a matter of hype, or if that is the people who are interested in that franchise have already invested in it and they knew they were going to get it, and now we're back to something that has a little more of a
Broader appeal.
broader, yeah, thank you, right?
Yeah.
I was going to
I,
say some family appeal here with Crash Team.
that's kind of how I was looking at it. You know, Fire Emblem, it got great reviews. There's nothing I've heard yet that it would indicate that there'd be any reason for it to crash in sales, but I think, like you said, the people that are interested in it bought it. And, there's not a lot of, that's not a franchise where I think there's a lot of fence sitters that are like, maybe I'll wait and see. It's like, okay, the first reviews hit, it wasn't a stinker. Yeah, I'm gonna put my money in it. I had my $60 ready to go. Um, so that's there. I'm still baffled that Grand Theft Auto 5 continues to sell the way it sells. It's pretty amazing.
It
But
is pretty amazing that after how many years that we're still talking about Grand Theft Auto as the top 10 game.
But we got Crash Team Racing, Super Mario Maker 2, and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Those are all games that would have very broad appeal, as would, slightly different demographics, but FIFA 19 and F1 2019. Those are both, they're not as niche, I don't think, a genre as a strategy RPG like Fire Emblem. One interesting thing, Red Dead Redemption 2 going from 15 to 8. Was there something that they just released with that, or is it? What would have prompted that to pop
Well,
back
I think
into the
they had
top
a
10?
sale where it was down to $30.
Oh,
Maybe they had a different sale for in UK. It also, I think they did do a content piece for the online piece, so that's potential where it got another there as well.
all right. Then we had your Minecraft and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, um, flipping places. But with Minecraft, I think it's just a matter of like as people get new platforms and new hardware, they buy the version on that hardware. So
Yeah, that's not too surprising that remains up there as high as.
yeah, but it's going to be interesting to see um, moving forward. Like what? So this is just console games, right? This doesn't look like any
No, this is console and PC because there were a
NPC.
couple. We had the Romance of the Three Kingdoms Total War game that got up here in the top 3.
Okay.
Back in must have been June when that came out. That game through and even May, but it was in the top 3 or here. So it does include PC. It seems to not take into account maybe as many digital sales as the NPD has tried to over the last couple of years. So yeah, I mean, it's again, it never is a perfect barometer, but it seems to often give us some similar readings in terms, you know, things like Days Gone stayed up there, stayed in the top 10 for a number of weeks, months after it came out in April, and we saw that kind of reflected in NPDs as well, where Days Gone still remained even last month. The NPDs still remained up there in the top 10 as well. So there's some kind of similarities here, but it's never a picture.
Curious to
Any
see
other
how,
final thought? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, just curious to see how things will progress now. We're hitting August. We got Control coming out on PC soon.
Controls at the end of the month here.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then sometime in the next week or two, we're supposed to be getting Link's Awakening.
No,
Right.
that's
Did that get
mid-September.
delayed?
September
Oh,
21st.
I was thinking that was
Yeah.
August. Astral Chain is in August. Is that
Yes,
accurate
Astral
still?
Chain. I think that and Control seem to be kind of the last big games for August here.
All
I don't
right.
know that there's a lot coming out. There's some kind of smaller stuff coming out for the next week or two, but in terms of big titles, at least big budget titles, that those two seem to be the last 2 before we get into the September rush of titles and expansion, Monster Hunter and Lands 3 and remasters and gears and all kinds of stuff. Yep. So it'll be interesting to see what our next few months in terms of sales like as well. So any final thoughts here, Swiss? We are upon our 5-minute mark, coming up under our 50-minute mark, as we try to do here on the deep dive episode, keeping them under an hour. Sometimes we've been good about this. There's been a lot more going on this summer since E3 than we thought we'd have. We'd have some quiet weeks, but that was really the case. So any final thoughts, any comments for you?
Nope. Just hope that, bear with us while we, iron out the new workflow.
Yeah, I hope that our Discord experience here works out. And again, thank you all for being patient with us as we transition YouTube recording to Discord. Swiss, next week we're back to our GX show. So again, on that alternative piece here, alternating, not alternative. But again, that idea of we're going to be going through. We've been playing, seeing what's on there. I know I am excited today or tomorrow, I think, is the drop for the No Man's Sky VR and the No Man's Sky Beyond multiplayer stuff. So I'm really curious what that looks like. Any new game or any game in your backlog here that's on your immediate horizon?
I really need to start Fire Emblem. So I think that's probably going to be where I try to focus for the next episode.
I'll be really curious on your Fire Emblem experience. I returned my copy and said thank you. So, and really that was more about my own time, not necessarily a value judgment of the game. So I'll be living vicariously through you and a guy in terms of your Fire Emblem experience.
It's quite a spectrum.
Oh, yes, it should be. It should be very interesting. So again, next week, Jordan will be back with our gaming experience show. So for myself, DBQ Hams and Swisscar and the rest of the E2KG network, thank you for joining us, and enjoy your evening, enjoy your games, enjoy your friends, and come along with us on what we enjoy, and hopefully we'll have some good conversation as well. Thank you and good night.